Hi, it's me again. Um, Still being followed around. I made a mistake on yesterday's video a little bit. Where the police department, the district attorney's office, and state department showed up, and no, I haven't seen her yet. It was actually Belden Village Mall, not Walmart. I get flustered, and sometimes I make mistakes. But yeah, when in January and February of 19, after I'd almost been murdered a couple times and stalked and Dave beating on me with internal injuries, um, my mind was so full of fog and horror. I would go to the mall and they had to work security, so they entertained themselves. And they would just walk up and go, "No, she hasn't seen me yet," and walk off and make me laugh. See, everybody wasn't bad. I even had people show up at Pizza Hut in Canal Fulton and looked at me and said, "We met each other." That'd be a couple during this case. Several of us have, with helping take care of you, we met each other and were together because we helped take care of you. And they would smile and walk off. Not everybody was bad. Actually, the kindness of strangers I have never seen, and the evilness thereof. Um, Last night, I know my car is bugged. I pulled in the Stark County Sheriff's and I started playing some of the tapes. Because I know they can hear me, everything's bugged. And some people pulled in and then they got out, they were repeating what I was listening to in the car with the windows up. And one of them turned around and looked and said, "Well, a minister taped you before." I never talked to a minister. Are they just saying stuff to get aroused? Is that it? Or is he part of the church? People weren't funny breaking in before, calling me a drugging me and telling me to say I was a weirdo before because my integrity wasn't at question. Now that minister was lying to people that I wasn't sick and I was years ago, and that's how he got Vega involved and other people because he's like, she was faking she was sick. I have documents I was sick, and I have scars on my stomach and back where they had to go back in and repair stuff. I mean, I had like 6, 8 surgeries in a little over a year. I was really bad sick. I was on fentanyl patches, and it was horrifying. And I'm grateful to God that I got better. Um, but back in '03, the kids were acting out, and they were going 14 and 16, going out drinking and driving. And what I did is I would ground them, and they were going out with some of the ministers' grandkids. Well, what I did is I grounded them a lot, and they weren't allowed around them. They were allowed around the neighborhood kids, but they weren't allowed around them. And they vandalized property. Josh would come home and say, "Mom, they did this." I'm like, "You're grounded." He's like, "It's okay." He'd come home and tell on them. And they had probably about 10, 15 friends in the neighborhood. They were allowed around them, but they weren't allowed around these kids that were 18 to 25 doing these horrible things. And so what I did is I would ground them from them and them only. Sometimes if they did something bad enough, what I did is, I mean, they weren't allowed to leave the house. If they came home drunk, they weren't allowed to leave the house. And sometimes I had to have my mother come over and make sure they didn't leave. Because if you're going to come home with drunk, 14 and 16, you're not going out. You're not sneaking out with them. But most of the time, it's just they weren't allowed around them. But Strange had took Danny once, and I couldn't find him. And because he came home, yelled something, and took off. Well, he had this girlfriend, Heather. She lived out of town, out on the outskirts of town. I went and tried to see if he was there. Her mother, Joy, and I were talking, and she said, well, Danny wanted to try to kill himself. And I said, well, why on earth would he try to kill himself? He said, well, they want him to help destroy people in the church. I'm freaking out. We go by the church. I see Strange's vehicle. I told Josh to sit in the vehicle. I don't want him to know Danny's acting out, and I got to find out what's going on. I walk into the door. Everybody's heard Josh verify it. He's sitting there like this through the door when I walked out. He's sitting in his vehicle, and he's like, confess you weren't sick. And I'm like, I would never do that. You're a spoiled little brat nobody likes in this church. And he's like, just the sight of you would hurt the church's children. Not me, just looking at me like I'm so ugly. He also said, you'll be lucky to see your kid again. Well, I went and got Dave. And when he was at Pizza Hut working, he's like, I'll clock out, go home, and I will meet you at the house. Well, he went over there. He come back. He's like, you're not at church anymore. I'm like, why not? And he said, when Strange is done with Danny, he'll give him back. And I'm like, what on earth? I called my mother. She said he preached on somebody crowning their kids too much. And I said, well, they're not going out with those vandals. That's all there is to it. They're destroying public property. They're buying my underage kids alcohol. My ex-husband verifies on tape that he's seen them being drunk. They had even took, I went through Josh's pockets and they had pictures of his naked. I'm like, who did this? He said, they thought it was funny. He's like, this isn't funny. And I tore it up. I said, you're grounded again. I said, this is not funny. And then he went out, I would ground him. David let him go back out because it was step-grandchildren. And he's like, Mom, one time in the van, they stripped me naked and threw me out of the vehicle. It made me run. I'm like, Josh, you're grounded. You're not going around those weirdos. I told Dave that. And as soon as I would ground them, within a week, he'd let him back, a week or two, he'd let him back out with him. And like I said, they had about 10, 15 friends in the neighborhood. Most of them were pretty girls, of course. And, but they had some guy friends too, and they could come over, they could go over their house. They couldn't go around them. For obvious reasons. He said even one time they were out, some kids said some bad things. They grabbed baseball bats and were chasing them. Good thing they got. I'm like, you're grounded. Yeah, from his step-grandchildren. And them, well, my kids would have a future. They will not be around perverts and ones buying them alcohol. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. So, yeah, I never talked to a minister about ever being, well, yesterday I went to go down and get something to drink. And when I went and got something to drink, they followed me, so I went back and I pulled in the Stark County Sheriff. So I'm sitting outside. I know my car's bugged. You heard in my apartment. You heard it echo back. And I'm playing some of the tapes. And some people pull in and they're repeating what was playing on my car. They stood outside and they said, well, minister said he taped you. I never talked to him about this. He's never, yeah. When I was sick, back in like 2000, he stopped over and prayed for me one night. He may have picked up uh, some fishing stuff from David Lennox, but that's it. He'd never been in my home in John Thomas. Matter of fact, I didn't talk to him for 8 years afterwards. Dave was going to that church. He asked me to go back in. I took everything in me to go in there. And people were saying that he was cheating with Katie. And then people were also, and he was denying it. And they were telling people I was drunk in drugs, running around the front yard in a bikini. And I didn't even wear anything but skirts, even outside church back then. And let's see. They were telling it so much that people were, and they were saying about watching porn and playing with stuff. I'm like, that's sick. So I was in there once and I said, can I talk to you? I said, did somebody say something or see somebody? I'm trying to make sense to lies. You can't make sense to lies. He talks to Dave and I for a second. He's like, I said, I never even quit wearing skirts, and I've been going on a Blaylock for about over a year. He looks at me like this. And he said, do you think your husband's cheating? And I said, I don't know. He's like, I don't want you back in this church. Well, Dave ended up quitting. We went to Pamers. He was cheating. And they found out I didn't know. Yeah. And that was the last time I talked to him. I hadn't talked to him since he took Danny. And Danny was in counseling for 2 years. Tried to kill himself. Got Danny back. He's shaking like this. Like this. And he took a vehicle and tried to run it into a tree and passed out. He took a dirt bike and went to run it into a telephone pole. And he hit gravel and he spinned out and got all caught up. He was in the crisis center. He was in the child and adolescent center. He was seeing a psychiatrist. He was on medication for 2 years. He became bulimic. And he got down to like about 118 pounds. And by then he was almost 6 foot tall. Do you know how bad he looked? He has no teeth because he threw up for 2 years. I had to have the neighborhood kids and the kids that I worked with, I would have them babysit him when I worked. I had to take him to counseling 3 times a week. I got him tutoring, and I did all kinds of things for him. The counselor there, she had told me, she said, Karen, the ministers that do this, it's documented that they're perverts. And I started laughing. She said they're either denying their lust for other women or they're out having all kinds of affairs. I started laughing. And she said, or they're gay and they're denying their lust for men and taking it out on women, or they're child molesters. And I was dying. She's like, Karen, it's not funny. It's documented. And she said, and when Danny grows up, we'll see what happens. Well, yeah, Dave tried to kill me. So he could get everything. And to manipulate people. He told everybody I was faking when I was really sick. I had like 6 surgeries. I have scars all over my stomach. And I have one 4-inch one on my back where they had to repair my kidney. I have things from Cleveland Clinic. I have MRI reports. You can't fake that shit. It's not funny. And he manipulated people and told them that. And that's when he told them, one guy lost his kid. I had nothing to do with it. His father-in-law was going to church baseball game. And he ran a stop sign and somebody had their vehicle. Phil was a lovely man. And Tyler was a sweetie. And Phil wasn't even showable and Tyler got ejected. Well, Ron lost it at the funeral. And they had to carry him out screaming. And people, he's very rich, felt bad. And they bought him plaques, planted trees. And then 8 years later on a pulpit, I hate God for taking the thing I love the most, not demeaning my other children, but I hate him. And instead of pulling him off that pulpit, they felt sorry for him. Who can do that? A millionaire. And they said he helped pay for the 25 grand because I did get well the year his kid died. It was months later, had nothing to do with him. And I was already starting to get well, and everything else just went in remission. Then it took another 6 months to get well. He had nothing to do with nothing. And then he helped pay the 25 grand. I overheard that lady on the phone. I thought I was getting baby mama. I thought Dave was cheating. What do you do with $5,000 to $6,000 that disappears from a safe? And I got all kinds of people admitting them knowing it. I thought he paid off the pregnancy. I thought he was cheating. I was going to get rid of him. And that one girl, I'd done such nice things for her over years, asking me down for prayer. And I felt tight, and I said, I don't, I think I'll pass. She's like, I'll step in for you. I said, that's nice of you. And she had me on speaker on her tiny counter. And she's like, some lady pays me $10 an hour to watch one kid. And I thought, who pays that for a tiny apartment to watch one kid? Somebody makes over $110,000. So I could hear. Guess who was on the phone? And she's like, I gotta go. Well, first she said, I gotta go. She's here. She had me on the counter while she's cleaning it off. On speaker. Her door's like 4 or 5 feet from the counter. I almost hung up and I thought, I wonder if I'll get baby mama. I shouldn't, but I'll listen. Guess who was on the phone? You're kidding. I almost tricked her into coming down to prayer where those two guys could show up and take care of her. You know, they pay people to know where she's at. I could use some money. I told her I'd step in for prayer for her, as if I couldn't believe it came out of my own mouth. They insult Kaylee for using another minister because Keith charged too much. And, they, said, well, you know who was in the meeting to hide those two men? It was Strange, Keith, Bishop, and Ron. And they took up $25,000 to have her murdered. And upset, and they said Ron wants her dead because she got well the year his kid died. And I'm sitting there on the couch, gasping. Excuse me. So when those people said I talked to a minister, I didn't talk to no minister ever about being bad to my children. My God, no. Let's just face it, Dave was probably cheating in that church. And when I got well, they had to get rid of me. And so they threw me out. That wasn't weird towards anybody, and I'm not weird towards myself. I sure as hell don't expose myself to everybody either. They were all a mean game of pretend, and even Flora ratted it out October 23rd, 2019, and they act like they're going to give that family money for Dave Fentanyl, a weird confession. Now they're saying some minister, well, they said it came out, the church people broke in before a director and told her to say she's some kind of weirdo before. It's not funny. And then Wendy's in town, they were talking about it. That one lady on Fairlawn Street, I yelled at him. And if it was one of those ministers, he's not been in my home. Oh my God. 2001? Yes, 2? Because he's done something like that, maybe, no, 3, maybe. I mean, he stopped by and prayed for me when I was sick once. He stopped by and he got fishing stuff and stuff from Dave. I mean, my integrity was not at question. So where would he get a tape? It's that crazy. If he's part of the church, people weren't finding breaking in before, drugging her and telling her say she's a weirdo before. It's really not funny. If they go between October of 18 to end of December of 18, Wood Forest, inside 62 Walmart, there's men talking behind me. I'm part of the 25,000. Strange hired me. I want to see her. I don't think it's any further into I don't think it went into January. I think it's between the end of December. And he comes around, goes like this. And then the guys that watched me were way off in the distance. And I freaked. If they want a hired assassin, admitting that he was paid 25 grand. He did another tape and audio at Wood Forest when I went to do a night drop. I don't think I chickened out and came back, but I may have. It still should be around that time. And the 25 grand was for Vegas kid. Because he's wanting some kind of sick vengeance. Because they lied to him. They lied to everybody. I was faking I was sick, and I was really sick. And now they got Melissa's little gangbangers. That of course it never will happen. Of course it wasn't true. It was a game of pretend. October 23rd, 2019. Flora ran it out. My granddaughter. They told her they were supposed to pretend it. All this was wiped out in 19. I didn't even know they were going to say that. I mean, an agent came up and went, Melissa's so stupid. She made everything up when you were fishy with Dave. She's actually that stupid. She didn't check where you were. Her first lie is you bent over and probably they said they seen the butt and they only made fun of the back of my knees and they picked out a nightgown I didn't even own. I had to have Dave verify I didn't own it. And they left me alone. Then they said, oh, they came upstairs and looking through a crack in the bathroom door and saying, you're weird with yourself. And I'm outside drinking water with Jen and I got people verifying it on my phone. And the third lie, they'll call you a bad word and make up something. The mean came up with that. And then they told people I was racist, I had to cripple people. I broke in a home, they tied my arms and legs to a chair, knocked it over, kicked it over, and jumped out the window. They told people I shot a home up and killed someone. Do you know they actually tried to frame me for the gunshot? Where in January, Dave and I went down to shoot Maslin at the tactical place. Some guy, my shoulder was tore up from him chicken winging me. And I was having a hard time with it locking up and freezing because the muscles were tore up. And I could hardly lift that gun to shoot it. And some guy came in and said, I want to see her shot pattern. Hers! The guy laughed at him and said she has nothing to worry about. There was a video of me hiding on the floor, not to get shot through the window or the back door. That's how corrupt these agents. Some guy looked at me and said, for any idle word you say, I will turn it on you. So I wouldn't tell on him. Instead of wanting these people prosecuted, they said on the gunshot night, people around me said, those men actually died. Some man said he's crippled over. Dave's mistake, and a big one. They met up outside the house for a moment. And where it was an FBI investigation, the house picked him up of how they murdered those men. Where I always said I heard him. The house picked him up. Everything that was done to me was for selfish gain of their own. He had met Michelle in Ravenna. Memorial Day weekend 2019, food counter, old white woman screaming it out that it was for her daughter. My husband, he met her in Ravenna when she was having a stomach spell, for it was my daughter they did all this for, and our family watching her down here. And who's Karen's rich boyfriend, but the state of Ohio, who protects her. I was at the register playing for cheesecakes for my neighbors, and you could hear it across Walmart. Like I told you, the good agents, for we all know this woman's innocent. We all do. And they've been out here with badges talking to people. And they did tell them, they drugged me and told me to say it before. People come up and say, they had you admit to the mean game of pretend. It's like, that's stupid. It's a mean game of pretend, and it's documented that, and they knew I didn't know till Flora stated it laughing. She's 7. She thought it was funny. She couldn't quit chuckling. They told her they were pretending it. They, let's see, and that it was a game of pretend. That evil call, the people better not be giving these people money. Getting money under false pretenses is extortion. Nothing happened to them. It was a mean game of pretend documented 2 years ago and wiped out. That part of the case was closed. People actually called the Massillon police in the courthouse in Ravenna. The undercover police will tell you that part was closed. They haven't caught the guys for the gunshot. Dave needs to go to jail. Nobody arrest him no matter what he does. Beat me with internal injuries videos of not even retaliating. Caught on tape how they murder people. Breaks even on my phone, he had people threaten me. And worse. Yeah. They tried to kill me. They paid people to know where I was. Is he in jail for anything? No. They're down here. They drugged her and told her to say something stupid. We're gonna get money for him. No, you won't. No, you won't. You're all gonna go to jail for aiding and abetting to cover up premeditated murder and murder 1. An attempted extortion under false pretenses on a documented lie. And then those people saying that some minister drugged me, told me to say something stupid before. Was he part of the church people weren't funny breaking in before, drugging her and telling her say she's some kind of weirdo before? Because I never talked to a minister about any of this. Nothing. How dare you? Do you realize somebody called these people idiot people? Some guy last year said anybody stupid enough to participate in this. Stupid enough. The neurochip needs to come out. It does come up on police scanners. The agency took responsibility. 3/13, 2:53 p.m. That the agency did it to me. And a damn bastard. In front of people out here and staff at Auburn Hospital. It's outlawed. 2005. Federal law. We're not allowed to nurture people. Drug, beat, rape, torture. U.S. Supreme Court 2005. 18-10134. Justice for Victims of Torture and Terrorism. They have to make it right with me. Then some lady told some guy, the inspector general will kill you for this. They're going to lock them up like they did the last 33 that did it. In a prison setting. Cost them 20 years of their life for this so-called truth. This is the United States of America. They had a question they could come ask me. But Dave was dating Michelle and some girl named Lauren. And he was playing, like the guy said, he played us all. He did. He got what he wanted and got rid of them. This is sick and satanic on levels. And they've already been down here telling people they did drug her and tell her to say it. Someone needs to show up. Because like I said, I've never talked to no officer, no agent. And when I talked to Dave, where they even said Dave did it to me before, where I talked to him, he defends me on tape, and I haven't. You're good to everyone, Karen. She's childish. You're good to everyone, no matter who it is. You know, Keith, that one minister, I was going down there. People started making up the lies of the drug bikini. I went to him. He said, you know, Karen, he said, what my response will be, you've never gave me a bit of trouble, and you're good to everyone. Troublemakers cannot help themselves. And you're good to everyone, and you've never gave me a bit of trouble. And they're about a year. 6 months to a year? I went to Strange with Dave. I took everything in me to go in that church again. And I said, I'd like to ask you, where are these people getting this? I said, I've been going down to Blackhawks for about almost a year. I said, I never even quit wearing skirts outside the church. What are they talking about? He looks at me like this. He said, do you think your husband's cheating? I said, I don't know. I don't want you back in this church again. You hear me? And Dave ended up quitting soon after that. Terry still makes that joke. If it wasn't for that darn bikini, Karen. I'm like, there's no bikini. I don't own a bikini. And I was over 200 pounds. Nobody wants to see that in a bikini. And it became such a big joke. Well, what color was it? And I said, I don't know. It's made up. Just pick a color. Is it yellow polka dot? I mean, it was just a big joke. I had lost weight. Dave was making good money. And I started buying dresses out of Dillard's. Nice ones. Macy's, I had my hair up in the little bun like they do and had it up. And I looked very professional. The texture tights that were out then and heels from Macy's. Had over $200 on my body. You know what they told people? She doesn't have enough class to dress right. My one friend, Leah, she looks like a Greek goddess. And she'd go out to eat with them. She said that to me. She said, I like your outfit. I said, thanks. I like it too. And she would tell me every week what they make up on me. Jim, yeah, when I went down there, it was ridiculous. And I went to Frances, an old friend. I said, what's going on? She said, Mary hates you. I said, I haven't seen Mary since 2003. She started laughing. She looked like the Grinch that stole Christmas. She had that big a grin. And she said, is that what's going on? I went, what's going on? And she said, you don't know? I said, no, what? Never mind. And she started laughing. I hate that game. That one time I was in there with Dave at that church, some girl came up to me. I heard you got into it with Katie. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I had her in the mall. What are you talking about? I talked to her. She started laughing. She said, is that what's going on? I said, what's going on? You don't know? No, what? Never mind. And she started laughing. There was lies everywhere because he was cheating. I told people, get me proof and I'll get rid of it. It was my damn luck that he met an FBI agent's daughter. And remember, he wouldn't have made it this far. He was already trying to kill me for Katie at Lennox. The random events. And it just went high tech. And now they think they're going to get money out of false pretenses. I don't think so. I was going to tell on them. I told you I went to turn that video, I got a prepaid phone, got all my evidence and the witness of the gunshot night. And I was going to turn him in for seeing all that shooting because people said someone died. And they said they killed 2 people outside. And I told you about the rape and torture and the threats to keep my mouth shut at Barry G's afterwards. And they saw the log of all things. People have all this pain and hurt for personal enjoyment. It's this sick. They even admitted at Shine on 8/18 this year that agent was seen with the stalker raping her. She could have anything she wanted in front of tape and audio at the register. They had already told people when I was in there getting my hair done. Ladies would tell the barbers were in here to watch her because some ass raped her. And they already told everybody I wasn't like what people said. They told FBI told Walmart. I told you a little kid was running from his mom and he came around the corner. He looked shocked and ran back. And they yelled out, "No child should ever be afraid of Karen. She's nothing but good and love." I laid my life down to save my family because Joshy's family was supposed to be next and they had a list. And I wanted those bastards caught before they killed my children. And at one point, they all heard Dave that he could kill everything. Everything I ever loved. He was going to kill them all. And he does it in timing and accidents. Joshy's vehicles and Dixie's got hampered with a lot. That's why the Maslin place and watch them. And if anybody ever asks them, she's innocent. They actually did. She's innocent. They did the investigations that I never heard anybody. And so with the Ravenna courthouse, the undercover police did an investigation and found me innocent on 1919. For the judges, they did a cute skit for you, had us look into it. You knew she couldn't handle it. You knew she appreciated us doing it. And you can find she did nothing wrong. Judge Pete walks by and Judge Timothy comes in laughing. We're ready to begin innocent in the court of Ravenna. And then even Flora ratted them out how they were supposed to pretend that I assaulted one and that it was a mean joke. And that it was a big game of pretend. And they were supposed to pretend it, and she thought it was funny and couldn't quit giggling. She's 7. I was so embarrassed, but it was BB's first party. And they had people, and I didn't say anything. I talked to Dixie about it later. She was so embarrassed the first time I talked to her, she couldn't even look at me. And then I got her permission to tape her. And but I had taped her before, and so I could put it online. And the police and hire were taping along with me. They heard everything. An agent looked at me and said, "If her little tapes make her feel better, she can have them. We have ours." I was in FedEx in Belden Village across from the mall on 8/27 about 3:16 p.m. Just a few days ago. This year, 8/27. 2 agents are standing off the side. The agent said he raped her because she didn't call 911. He was angry with her. That's not true. They were mad I was going to tell that they let him get away with all these crimes. And they couldn't have me state it like the guy yelled at 1239 North Chapel. And the lady was yelling at him. You can't beat a single woman by herself. And he said, we can't have her state what happened up there. And I thought they were trying to scare me where I bought that prepaid phone and I got my videos and my statements and I was going to turn them in. And I even went to Seth, my old attorney, and I'm like, I have a package. Would you deliver it? What's in it? I can't tell you. I don't deliver those kind of packages, Karen. And I'm like, what to do? And Dixie was crying until she passed out. at one point, because of Dave scaring her that they had gunfire, they went to the wrong house and looked at me like Satan himself, that I was target practice. And she's got counseling medication. She's better, but their vehicles got tampered with really bad there for a while after Dave threatened their life. And it just, I couldn't figure out how to get it to them that they wouldn't snatch it. So, I thought I'll wait a little bit and I'll figure it out. Woke up to hands above head smothered. Mother agents punching me at my private air and punching up beside. Fourth time coming up for air. I passed up. Set her up, older fat white man at the end of the bed. I could hardly see from being smothered. And they poured something in my mouth. I wouldn't swallow it. And they smeared it on my face. And they said she don't stay at the door to her gun. And they started a gun until I just, whatever, just stop raping me and smothering me. And I couldn't move because they put in my mouth paralyzed. I woke up the next morning, had bruises on my face, fingerprints up and down my arms, and my private area was swollen. I was horrified. I got up and I got dressed and I put makeup on my face. And I grabbed my blankets and I went down to the laundromat. They had women waiting there, tape glitch 4 hours. She doesn't, no one knows why she woke up with bruises. That lied, it's still there because they sold the login. Over 20, 30 people have come up and said stuff about it in public. That they seen it. I worked at that between a very cheap bar. Before that, I went to make this happen between July and September 19th. Tape's still there. I went to Macy's. I seen that agent and I was scared. And I went to leave and there was a lady with bags. Her car had been stolen off her. Take her somewhere. She didn't want my help. And because she had someone coming, she didn't want to sit in my car. I had someone come and I even told her I didn't want to leave her. And she's like, you're fine, just go ahead and go. And I went to Faith Family Church. There's 3,000 of us. A lot of them have the log. That idiot, there's over 1,000 people in that church that come in the back, calls me a whore, and starts yelling at me and pointing that he ought to arrest me. The guy in my church got in his face, what you did was considered rape, you leave her alone. And he starts yelling about Dave, and everybody in that church are turning around looking at him horrified. Barry Cheese in Louisville between July 23rd and September 1st of 19. Right after it happened, there was 4 white women in the main room. They turned around and he said, if you open your mouth again, he'll do it to you. I'm like, who's Keith? I was warned to stay quiet. They pranked at the register at Walmart. 2 young African American agents. We stayed out of the gunshot night because Dave's girlfriend's prettier and the guy running it didn't blame us. Oh, they were African American dreadlocks. And then an older white guy at Wood Forest. How stupid I looked sitting on the floor. He'd sit on the floor if there was gray laser lights coming into the living room, the lights crossing out back, and people and gunfire going off. You'd sit on the floor too. And a light green laser light crosses the middle of your eyes. You'd sit on the floor too. And they said those men actually got killed where you can't see past the porches because of the 200-foot trees that encase the house. and the giant woods across the street, no street lights. You can't even see past the porches. I could only see the green laser light crossing the middle of my eyes and duck, and lights crossing out back. And I kept saying my house was bugged by the FBI. They would always say something when they walked by in the stores. They always knew what was going on. And I kept saying, I should call the police. Don't you get off this phone. I hear gunfire. Don't you get... And he's yelling, and I can't tell him I know they're out there. And I know they could hear me. I know they could hear me. And I ended up taking a 9mm gun and several clips and sitting position between the two doors in case they broke in to take him out. And the second set of gunfire that was so loud and extensive, it exploded in my head. I threw that phone and I began to pray. And as I prayed, moonlight broke through like and it went dark. And when he got home, you could hear outside for a moment in time. Dave made a mistake and a big one. I thought it was he told Dixie. I was how they murdered those men. They can get him if they want. There's a lot of heinous crimes. And then for them to say they've drugged you even before I told you to say this. And then witnesses telling people with badges they did it. And they're still saying stuff to me. The victim neurochips were out. I told you in 2005, 18-10134, the agency took credit for it at Altman Hospital and called the guy a damn bastard. There's a CD of it at Mercy Medical. In March of this year, died. You can see they cut the wires in the crack. Stabbed in the neck at 12/21/18 at the refrigerator, abducted. Woke up with hair missing, have a dent in my skull. And I didn't know what happened. I didn't wake up for 6 hours later. The idiot that went to Paymer showed up and mocked me that he had a right to do it. It's a federal law. You can't drug, and you can't beat, rape, torture, and you can't do anything for the so-called truth, and you only did it for the selfish gain of your own. Now, it's somebody. And nobody better be giving those kids money. It's like documented giggle. Some lady called these people idiot people. They are idiots. Yeah, they drugged her and told her to say it. Oh, we didn't know. They knew the kids were lying. She's even confessed she lied to people in town, and people have laughed in my face. And behind me in line in the store. Well, I went through drive-thrus. The house picked it up. The car picked it up. And they sold the log, and everybody knows she lied. And they want a buck off of me being raped and tortured, trying to get people help on a documented lie and a documented me game of pretend, because they had it so planned out that while we're paying people to know where she is, hiring 6 stalkers chased off in Walmart, real murderers, and real attempts on my life. I almost got shot in the head driving down to John's house one day when Gus ate his leash and I couldn't calm down. I told you about that. And I slammed, swerved, and tugged. And they were arguing in Walmart. They weren't allowed to pull me out. And I was in high danger. And then even after the gunshot night, more men showed up and were arguing they weren't allowed to pull me out. And one guy is so mad, he's like, one more bad thing happened, so help me. I'll hide her in my own home. I don't care anymore. They left me in high danger to be murdered for selfishness of their own. Somebody needs to come down here. There's a man in a wheelchair said he got crippled. And they said those 2 men actually died. Their families need taken care of. And you need to address it with your agency of what the hell happened that night. Who was backup? Who
was on call and who was locked in and why didn't they help Karen hiding on the floor? Because you couldn't tell that ass they were outside. They would just broke in and killed me. That's the only thing that would have been different right now. If that man that said that he ran to a neighbor's house and they shot at him, he made it to a neighbor's house to call the police and you heard sirens in the background. If he wouldn't have got to where he could call the police, they would have just came in and killed me that night, but the police were in the area. Your agency needs to find out what the hell. I was in protected custody, and you let all of these things happen to me, and your agents participated. And somebody, I may have a scepter infract in my heart, where idiots would break in and stab me with needles. FBI don't drug people. They don't use sodium pentyl. It's movie shit. You'll falsely admit to luring children, falsely admit to writing ransom notes, falsely confess to Pearl Harbor. Questioner gets what it wants, right or wrong. It's anesthesia. And it's so lethal that FDA will not allow it to be brought in the United States. It's used in veterinaries to put animals down. And humans, they wouldn't use something lethal to make you lie under it. They don't drug anybody because of the fifth. And they don't use neurochips because they outlawed those in 2005 when they tried it in a prison setting and put those agents in jail, 33 of them, for 20 years. You can't do any of this. It's the United States of America. It's not North Korea. It's not Afghanistan. It's not Soviet Russia. And if they had a question, they could have came ask me. And it would be, what are you talking about? And they knew it. And there's people down here with badges. And they are telling them how they drugged me before and told me to say stupid stuff. And I don't know what's on those tapes except for what people say around me because I didn't know they did it because they drugged me. It's a severe goal. And somebody needs to help.